Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And you can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 27th of January 2020, and our guest today is a Swedish scientific researcher, an author, lecturer with a PhD in science and technology studies. He's the author of a book on the history of the Rockefeller family dynasty and the construct of what he calls the climate change agenda. Jacob Nordangård. Good evening from Copenhagen, Denmark, and hello to you, Jacob Nordangård, or Jakob Nordangård, joining us from Norrköping, Sweden. Welcome to the show, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
You have said that man-made climate change is the perfect problem that this world could be faced with. What exactly do you mean by that?
Climate is the perfect problem because it connects everything in the world. We have, energy is connected to it, the human activities, everything. It's totally perfect. Do we have an absolute science? Do we have proof for this? And I checked with both sides of the debate. And I couldn't find this answer. I couldn't find the proof.
But you've called it the carbon dioxide theory. But why are you saying that it's only a theory?
Well, in science, we only have theories. It's the truth is harder to get to. It's a theory. In science, we have theories, and science work to actually try to disprove theories, to further them, to get them better. That's the scientific method. So to say that something is, this is the thing, this is the way, no, you can't say that in science.
But they do that in the mainstream media.
Yeah, of course.
In 2019 and in 2020, the hottest topic in the mainstream media was man-made climate change, the CO2 carbon dioxide scare, if you will.
Yeah.
And you call it a theory, and you're saying that it is not true. And you've been lecturing about climate change for about 10 years, and you've been studying this for a long time. But why are you saying that all of the media, the politicians, the movers and shakers are not telling the truth, which would mean that they're all lying?
I don't think, but you can say that they are lying. They believe this is true. That's the thing. But there are actors and players in this that use this theory and claims it to be true. But that's not the case.
But how can everybody believe that something is real if it isn't?
Propaganda, indoctrination, the school system. We are raised to this. If you hear it every time in the media, we start believing it because everybody says it. And it's very few people that can stand out and say, wait a minute, can this be true? Or where does this theory originate from? That was questions that I told myself.
But many scientists all over the world are telling us that there is a problem with the climate. And well, these days it is practically that the world is going under if we don't change our ways. But they spoke about this for 40, 50, perhaps even 60 years already, that the climate would change because of man-made pollution. And many, many scientific reports have come out. But you are claiming otherwise, and of course other people are doing that as well, which would lead us to call you, the popular term today, a climate change denier. What are your thoughts on that?
The thing is, I'm just acting like a scientist, a real scientist should do. And the thing is, in science, we call that ad hominem. But ad hominem is to call people things and try to, we have this guilt by association and everything. And that's a very dubious method. And I would say that if your theory is really good, you don't need those arguments. You don't need to tell people that they are deniers and these things, because that's a scare tactic to make people uncomfortable and feel that they don't want to speak out, because it's the denying thing, it goes back to Holocaust denial and these things. So the mainstream media and everyone was so into it and claimed this to be totally true, and that took me to wanted to look into the background and where did this originate from.
So please talk about the connection, Jacob. Who benefits and why would they mastermind such an extraordinary lie if it is a lie?
One day I started to do my PhD studies, and I wanted to write a background chapter about how the climate issue had begun, because it was very important. I wrote a book about biofuels policy of the European Union. And climate was a big thing. That was the motivating factor to actually do this, to have this biofuel boom. That together with energy security issues. So I just wanted to have like 5 pages with the background to the climate issue. I went into one of my colleagues. I knew that he has, I was then at the Climate Policy Center in Norrköping. So everyone there was studying climate issues. And I asked him, because I knew he had checked on some climate research history. And I asked him, do you know anything about how this started? And he said, no. I know more about the modern story, like when the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change actually started and the years after. But he didn't know the prehistory. But he said, I know about a researcher that has written some papers about it, or scientific articles, and he gave me some of those. And I started to read this, and I was astonished when I found out they had some meetings in the 80s before they launched this intergovernmental panel. But the goals with these meetings was to achieve IPCC. And when I checked who was behind these meetings, the latest meetings, I found some foundations. One was Rockefeller Brothers Fund, another was Rockefeller Foundation. And that was, I wondered why. The Rockefellers, the oil barons, the ones that has created this society more or less, with the help of oil in the 20th century. So that made me curious. Why would they? I mean, they are behind so much that a lot of environmentalists have been angry on the Rockefellers. So why do they? Why are they involved in this? And I started to dig deeper. I wanted this to be like 5 pages, but I wrote then a longer text, like 50 pages, called Thoughts Leading to Action. Because I found out that all these, that there was connections to big foundations that has gotten their money from oil or from the auto industry and so on. And I mean, big actors from the capitalist world. So, and it struck my mind when I went through all this information, and it just felt like a military operation. And actually was kind of scared when I found out this. And I also found out one thing that was central, that climate was very well connected to the problem to achieve international cooperation, international control. A lot of talk about world government, of course. And the organizations so that was involved was very into these things. So that was one of my conclusions. Climate has been used to achieve and to give incentives for supranational government and organizations.
So you spoke about the big actors involved and companies and organizations, and you talked particularly about the Rockefellers. But what about other family dynasties, or please mention those big organizations who you say are part of this orchestration?
Some organizations stand out. One is the Club of Rome. Very, very important environmental think tank. The other organization that has been very influential in this agenda is the Trilateral Commission. The Club of Rome isn't directly created by the Rockefellers, but by friends in high places, more in Europe. But one of the most important meetings when they launched the Club of Rome was at the Rockefeller Foundation, Bellagio Center in Italy. But one of the main early founders was Giovanni Agnelli, the Fiat boss, and the Club of Rome manager or president was Aurelio Pecce, and he was the second guy at Fiat. Why
did they create the Club of Rome? It was founded in 1968, right?
Yes, it was.
Trilateral Commission, was that founded in 1973?
It was in 1973. But we have to go back even further. We have to go to after the Second World War. The Rockefeller brothers, they started their own foundation called the Rockefeller Brothers Fund in 1940. And in the 50s, they got a lot of money from their father, John D. Rockefeller Jr. It was, of course, money from the Standard Oil Corporation that they got. It was a lot of money. And they started something called the Special Project. And they wanted to, there was some areas that they were interested in. It was Population control.
Do we know that for sure, or is that just speculation?
No. It's very well documented. And we have natural resources, the environment. That's the other part. People and the planet. And also health issues, agriculture, and a lot of other areas. They were also into new technology, and that's very important. Founded something called the Rockefeller Brothers Incorporated, but invested in new technology.
Is that in one way or the other connected to 5G?
Yes, it is. Because the Rockefeller Foundation, they actually have, they arranged the first conference about artificial intelligence. And that was in 1956.
Really?
Yeah. So it's very early. And they were around, the Rockefeller Foundation funded Norbert Wiener. He was behind the cybernetics. He was the first one that founded this field of study. So they were very into this. But in this special project, they kind of connected all these things. And with population, we had one brother, John D. Rockefeller III. He was the oldest brother and was the one that would take over the empire from the beginning, but it wasn't like it wasn't. It was what they tried. He wanted that from the beginning, but he had a brother, a younger brother, that had other ambitions and actually became more of like the leaders of the Rockefeller brothers. Nelson Rockefeller. Nelson Rockefeller was vice president of the United States in the 70s. So he had very big ambitions, but the first brother, he was into population issues. He was called Mr. Population, John D. Rockefeller III. He started something called the Population Council in 1952, and this organization, they handpicked members that were a lot of people from the eugenics movement. Was into this, and because John and these influential people, because it was mainly people from the upper class as well, but saw people as a problem, and they wanted to do something about a population that grew bigger all the time, because a bigger population consumes resources, and that you have to control.
So that group was actually formed 2 years before the Bilderberg Group was founded, which was in 1954.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is, they had a conference in 1952. That was the kickoff for this organization, and they had decided at that meeting of a global plan to curb population growth. And this is very important because it later connects to the climate change agenda. Because that's the things we hear today as well. We are too many. We use too much resources. It's too much carbon dioxide. That's us. That's us people. At that meeting, at the Population Council meeting, there was a man called Roger Revelle attending. He became very important of the carbon dioxide theory in the 50s. He was an oceanograph. He got his money, a lot of money from the Rockefeller Foundation, as well as the American military.
So the Rockefellers are more part of this, in this particular agenda that you're talking about than, for example, the Rothschild family, or what?
Yeah, yes, I would say that's what I have found about it. The thing is, the Rockefellers are more in public view, and they are very, very good at recording everything that they have done. We have an excellent archive, the Rockefeller Archive Center, and I know it's been written a lot of material about this. So I have documented everything in my book, so nothing is speculation, I can say, about this. But the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are, of course, old buddies. They have worked together. I mean, they are into the same areas. The Rothschilds have been involved in Shell oil, and I mean, it's the European, the main European family in these things, and the Rockefellers are the American part of it, with Exxon and Chevron and these companies.
Would they be part of the 13 royal bloodlines that people refer to as the Illuminati?
Those things I don't really talk about or speculate about. I have just studied this, what the Rockefellers are doing for real, not their background and if they are connected to some secret organizations or whatever. More what I actually can find out about them, but it's more I have proof for.
But certainly the Bilderberg Group was a secret organization, and it's only in recent years, since, let's just say, after the year 2000 or maybe even 2010, that even the mainstream press has been in a way forced to report somewhat about the Bilderberg meetings taking place every year, because before then it was very secretive, and it still is. Nobody knows what they're talking about and discussing.
Yeah, we have the Chatham House rules. So yeah, we try to hide them for a long time, of course. But I think the most interesting thing with my study is that the things that actually are totally open, transparent, because everything is in plain view. so people talk about these dark secret organizations, but the things are evolving or in plain view for everyone to see, but they don't see it.
Well, it usually is, yes. So take us back to 1952. Again, you were talking about this first meeting taking place there back then by the Rockefellers and who else?
Another important family, the Vanderbilts in the United States, and we have relatives to the Morgan family involved in this as well. So it's the elite of the United States, and they have also connections to Britain, because those who are at this meeting, they are involved in the American Eugenic Society, and they are very well connected to the English Eugenic Society that was headed by Julian Huxley. And the Huxleys and the Rockefellers have connections and work together.
Huxley, is that anyone related to Aldous Huxley?
Yes, it is brother.
Really? Who wrote Brave New World?
Exactly, Brave New World. And that's interesting because as we can see, now we are more or less heading into a Brave New World. So
maybe we're there already.
He wrote something, he knew about these things, about an old agenda, but the Rockefellers became a part of.
So why the agenda? Why that? Why would they impose such an agenda, if we don't call it a lie, on the world, if it's not a real problem?
To quote something, because I can say something, they started this special project. And then a couple of years later, Nelson Rockefeller had an idea. He wanted to achieve something. So he hired a young academician called Henry Kissinger to lead a project that was called the Special Studies Project. It was very ambitious. It contained experts in every field, and the smartest guys in the United States, more or less, to achieve something. I can just read a quote something from that report. What they said: "We cannot escape, and indeed should welcome, the task which history has imposed on us. This is the task of helping to shape a new world order in all its dimensions: spiritual, economic, political, social." Special Studies Project. So that's and this is a very ambitious report. We've written in a lot of volumes.
And all of the world leaders at one point or the other have spoken about wanting to create a new world order. Yeah,
it's a catchword that's been used. Yeah, and especially Henry Kissinger. And in this report, the thing is, the climate issue, climate change research, got a lot of funding in the 50s, and it came from the American military and the Rockefeller foundations. And when this report was written, they had a lot of new information about climate, and they have started to get research on how human intervention in the climate might unfold. They didn't just talk about carbon dioxide at that time. They also talked about, other means to influence the weather. Artificial weather control, weather warfare. That was things that's important for the American military, of course.
Is that what we know as HARP or DEW, directed energy weapons?
That kind of technologies. The HARP, then we can go back to Nikola Tesla and his research, and that they picked up. And we have a guy called Bernard Eastland that took the patent, but then became this HARP.
So they can change and create the weather by using electromagnetic satellite frequencies. Is that microwave type frequencies, or what exactly, how exactly would you explain it?
We have a lot of different technologies to influence the weather. We have like seeding the atmosphere and the clouds and things. So it's not just all about these HARP technologies, but it's one aspect of it. But the thing is, with these technologies, we don't really know. And that's, old warfare technology. We know where a bomb comes from. We know that this is a weapon. But with the weather, we can't really know for sure. It's a lot of speculation in this. But the thing is, they discussed it in the 50s very, very much. And in this report, they discuss how research about climate change is one major thing to give money to. Because research fields like meteorology and oceanography, it spans the globe. It knows no borders. And that's the thing we can use to achieve this. You can say this new world order if you want. And that's the start of it. And shortly after this, they talk about this And I have other quotes about how they used it. And another great example is a mathematician called John von Neumann. He was a very, very smart guy in the 50s. And he said he was involved in this as a scientist in these groups that we were discussing the future problems. And he said that climate change will get nations to get together more close than any other problem in the world. Like, I mean, we have, before we had the atomic bomb and things. But he said in 1955 that climate change will be the thing that will make this possible.
Mm-hmm. So how is the climate change agenda connected to UN Agenda 21, which is referred to also now as UN Agenda 2030, and the Club of Rome, and ultimately the New World Order, global government construction and globalization?
It's very close connected, but because if you go to the history, they decided in the late 50s, this is the problem. And they arranged a meeting in 1962, the Conservation Foundation. It was more or less run by Lawrence Rockefeller, one of the brothers. At this meeting, it was the first meeting that discussed carbon dioxide, first international meeting. But it was just scientists from two countries. One was United States, of course. The other was Sweden. Because Sweden is very, very important in this agenda. More important that people know about.
Sweden always comes up, doesn't it?
They had a very close cooperation, but and it comes with that Roger Revell that I mentioned before, the oceanographer that was at the Population Council meeting. He had a friend called Carl Gustav Rossby. And Rossby was at the he was a star in meteorology, and he built up meteorology in the States at the Rockefellers University of Chicago. He was at their institution called Woods Hole, the Institute of Oceanography, and a lot of other projects closely connected to the Rockefellers. And he was in the late 40s. He went back to Stockholm to start an institute, the Meteorological Institute at the Stockholm University. And that became a focal point for this theory in Europe.
But it was also in Stockholm in 1972 that they held the very first environmental climate summit there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And the theory of climate change or the carbon dioxide theory was discussed in Stockholm 72. And that was because of the Club of Rome. The first thing is they had this conference in 1962. And what came out of this, it was that they had to do something. They want to put up a watchdog for the climate. And they, the Rockefellers, or Lawrence Rockefeller, was very close to the White House. He was an advisor to Lyndon Johnson, the president, and a very good friend to President Johnson's wife.
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird, yes. So, and he and Lawrence was kind of influential in the speech writings for the president. So the first speech that a president held about climate change, it was in 1965, very early, and at the same time they released a report where the carbon dioxide theory was in. that was important problems to do something about. The environment became big in the 60s. And some years after, the Club of Rome came about. And we can find the same people involved in this. And in the Club of Rome, they had it was a guy called Carl Wilson, that was part of the inner circle. He was a close friend to Nelson Rockefeller, and later became a member of also the Trilateral Commission. He was involved to commission a report in the early 70s, or two reports about climate change. And that was it's a very important piece that set the tone for the rest of the decades, I would say. And that work was a part of the Stockholm conference where we discussed climate. But the thing is, when Wilson wrote this report, or commissioned it, he had the thing they wanted to achieve was to find problems that man could be influencing the environment with little means.
But don't you think that could be true, actually, that we human beings are using too much CO2, that pollution and how we treat the environment is a bad thing and can affect the climate?
Of course, we should use our planet wisely. Of course, we should do that. But in this case, they have used these concerns. I mean, they were involved in more or less wrecking the planet in other economic activities. So, I mean, they are very schizophrenic, I would say. I mean, in 1972, it wasn't decided at that time that carbon dioxide was a big problem. Because they had two schools. One said that if we emit carbon dioxide, it will get warmer. And the other school said, no, if we can block the sun with the aerosols that comes out of the burning of fossil fuels, so that it will be colder instead. So that was it wasn't decided at that time.
When you say schools, you mean two different factions of it, different groups.
Yeah. These two different scientific groups that argued about these things. And it wasn't decided until it wasn't, I think, in 1975 had a meeting that went along with, no, let's go for the carbon dioxide theory. And since then, very few talked about this other theory. And nobody talked about the natural causes of climate change, of course.
So what about u.n.agenda 21? How did that come about?
I mean, it more or less started, I mean, the Stockholm conference started this. I mean, it was the first, and I mean, you can see that it was a lot of the ambitions that they had, the Rockefeller brothers, and also well-connected people in Europe that they were cooperating with. And the Stockholm conference was very much a Rockefeller conference, I would say, with Morris Strong as the general secretary, close friend to the family.
The general secretary of the conference in Stockholm. Yeah,
it was Morris Strong, and Morris Strong was involved in this the Bloodline Commission that came in the 1980s because they had this document accepted in Stockholm with where you can see that it was a lot of I mean that the thinking, the final document it was a lot of from this that came from an American institute called the Aspen Institute, but where these people met, and where they met with the Club of Rome people, and so they manufactured their agenda that came up, and this started a process in the 70s, but led to the 80s and the Brundtland Commission. That's the next step, where they and this Brundtland Commission was led by Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was trilateral.
And she was the former Norwegian prime minister.
Yeah, social democrat. And this was actually the third commission that they had about close issues, about global issues, global cooperation. There was a report called the Brandt Report before that. And Olof Palme had one report about common security. But all reports was about the commons, common problems that needs common solutions.
So don't you think that climate change is happening, that there's a change in the climate?
It's always a change in the climate. That's how the climate functions. It has never been stable. So.
No, but we're not talking about just a sunny day and then tomorrow it will rain. More drastic changes. How do you? What are your thoughts on that?
Drastic changes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have had drastic changes before in the climate. Very drastic. We had this volcano eruption, Krakatau, and that affected the whole climate in the world for a couple of years, and it blocked the sun. I think it was in 1882.
Oh, but not in recent years.
We have had these things that has affected, of course, and I mean, we have a lot of. I mean, the climate is it's a complex system. It's very, very complex. So when we say that our carbon dioxide is doing this, it doesn't make sense if you have studied how the climate system.
So you say that it's natural disasters and natural changes, whatever is happening, but it's not that drastic, except for the volcano eruption and what you're talking about. And of course, we know about the Ice Age.
Yeah, of course. And we have had, I mean, a lot of things. I mean, the climate is very important for us. I mean, with agriculture and everything. And I know a Swedish researcher that is very into this, has have written a lot about it, about climate history, called Fredrik Carpentier. He's very skilled in this and has written all about these changes in the climate before, and especially connected to disasters and starvation. And the thing with this is that it's the worst catastrophes has happened with colder weather, because you can grow anything if it gets too cold. So I mean, we have had this disasters in I mean, it was in the 1870s, I think, in especially Finland. A lot of people died in starvation because of it wasn't I think it was a summer what was very, very, very hot, and it was a dry, so they couldn't grow anything, and then the next year there were no summer, so they had and the winter was into like May or June or something, and that created a big disaster, of course, and because also of the bad communications, you couldn't get corn to people or food.
But it's usually very cold in Scandinavia normally anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But there's another fellow countryman of yours, or countrywoman, young woman, that would be Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg, who has become an international symbol of the climate change agenda, being heavily promoted all over the mainstream media for the last year or year and a half. And she's now meeting with world leaders and celebrities from all over the world. How did she become involved and become like let's say, the poster girl for this climate change agenda? What is your opinion on her?
The thing is, they had a meeting in 2015 in Germany, a foundation called Planet Foundation. This was connected to the Club of Rome and the United Nations. This was a youth conference, and at this meeting, they discussed how they could influence young people all over the world. And also, if you influence young people, you influence also their parents, and a lot to do with feeling guilt.
Do we know that they discussed that particular thing at that meeting in 2015?
Yeah, I have it documented. It's not in my book, but I've written about it. It's on my blog. So, I mean, they have conference documents and everything, and they discussed new concepts. And one of the concepts was school strike. And after that, they wanted to find someone that could be this model to be the one that attracted the masses. So some years after, Greta come along, and that's another story. We have, I think it's a guy called Bo Thorén in Sweden, but actually he was connected to this American organization, I think like 350.org and a couple of other. I mean, this is a network of organizations that has connection. Everyone is connected to each other. So he kind of worked for these actors.
He worked for what actors?
He worked for, it was called Fossil Free Sweden, his organization. And it was connected to a bigger organization, an international organization, Fossil Free International or whatever. And he was important in this because he wanted to find this girl or boy to be this model for people to look up to.
So she was planned. It wasn't herself getting involved and starting this school strike?
They wanted to find a girl like her. I don't know. I think that she actually believes this herself, but she's committed to this in a way.
But what about her parents, who are they're both entertainers, right?
Yeah, they are. I mean, Malena Ernman, she's a famous opera singer, and and they have benefited from this, of course, very much, and it has become an industry behind Greta.
So you feel that there's a deception going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I've studied environmental organizations and grassroots movements from very early. I started this as a doctoral student, and there's a lot of things that they call grassroots that aren't grassroots, because everyone loves the grassroots because they stand for the truth and they stand against the elites and everything. But in this case, and when I researched about the environment movement, it was the other way around. The elite has influenced this. They have more or less created this underground movements. And that's an old tactic, of course.
How come Sweden is always at the forefront or first when it comes to changing policies such as climate, gender politics, and the gender neutral politics that you have particularly in Sweden, and also microchipping the population?
Yeah. It's like a lot of Swedes are naive. They fall for propaganda. And the thing is, this has been written a lot about. We have, it was a guy called Graham Molitor that wrote about public policy and how fast things can be implemented all over the world. In his research, he found out that Sweden is number one. It's always Sweden. So they always take Sweden as the first country to do things.
And then Denmark second.
Denmark comes not that far behind. The Scandinavian countries are very adaptive to this. And when you come to countries like Mali or something, they never. Because they don't have propaganda in that way, but we have. I mean, we have this, and Sweden has one aspect I would say is that I was raised. I had I was home with my mother when I was a child till I was 6, but they took that away in more or less in the 70s. So that all children will be in kindergarten. No housewives. That's an ugly world in Sweden.
Sweden is also leading in terms of the feminist movement, right?
Yeah. And you take the children in the kindergarten and you give them the opinions they should have. Don't let children think for themselves. I mean, the thing that I did, I could think myself. I wasn't in that from an early age. So it was much harder to, I was very critical. But we take all these children in Sweden very early and put into state indoctrination to have right values. I mean, and Sweden is a consensus country. It's not okay to have another opinion. You have to think the right way.
So that sounds very communist, of course, and a lot of people, especially in America, they say that the Scandinavian countries are very communist. They are socialists, of course, and there is a difference.
It's very connected, and of course we're not real communists, but I mean we still have very. I mean, we live in a capitalist system, but that's the economics of it. And we have this, I mean, we have our family in Sweden that is influential and are into everything and research and influencing policy as well. So yeah, that's how it's worked. And the one aspect of this is we have the Rockefellers in the United States, of course, and they have friends that are into the business world, and that's how this works as well. And you talked about Bilderberg before. I mean, that's a place where we have met and discussed the world and how to influence people, and maybe also Sweden can be a good place to when we discuss with each other. Maybe we could. We have these ideas. Could we do it in Sweden? Yeah. Wallenberg says, yeah. I think it's a good idea. Whatever.
In Sweden, when they implemented something, a trend or a new idea or something in the social structure or economic structure, perhaps even, then it's easier to see how that will work on a global scale.
Yeah, I think.
Is that how it is?
Okay, Sweden go first. We can get it function here. We will work a bit more with other countries, but they will eventually follow.
So please get back to what we discussed on UN Agenda 21 and global sustainability, the green agenda. And first we talked about the Stockholm Conference in 1972, but there was also the Rio Conference in 1992. So please take it from there and go further on with your explanation on the climate change agenda.
The Brundtland Commission was that made the Rio Conference happen. And the Brundtland Commission, we had Brundtland, of course, we had Morris Strong involved. Morris Strong always. I mean, and it's the usual guys. And the thing is, the Brundtland Commission, they have a chapter about climate. How did this chapter about climate? How did it came to be in the report? I write about it in my book, of course, but it was the Rockefellers in the early 80s. They started a program called the One World Program. It was now an update of the old plan from the Special Studies Project, but it coincides very much with the Brundtland Commission, with the global commons. We have global problems. And we have to solve these global problems in a global context. That was it. And it's the same with the One World Program for the Rockefellers and the Brundtland Commission. And it can be explained because, I mean, Brundtland was a trilateral. She was a part of David Rockefeller's commission. So they were very close, and they shared some goals together. Not all things, of course. But the One World Program, they said that climate is the shit. Now we have worked with the climate, the 50s, the 60s, and 70s. Now we want it in the u.n.agenda. And one big thing was to get it in the Brundtland report. So they gave money to a guy called Gordon Goodman. He was the head of the Bayer Institute in Stockholm. And again, Stockholm is important. And we have had some World Resources Institute in the United States, and some couple of other institutes that the Rockefeller Brothers Fund commissioned to do this. So they had the goal, and they got the money, and to get this climate thing into the Brundtland report. And Gordon Goodman wrote this, actually. I think they got like some $100,000 to do this.
But the Club of Rome, they also issued a manifesto or a book, wasn't it, where they actually talked about orchestrating climate change.
And the thing is, I told you about Carol Lou Wilson, but commissioned this first reports in the early 70s. One can say that it comes from that time, but this report that you're referring to is from 1991, I think, and it was written before the Rio conference. And that is the famous quote where they actually say that this is more like an invented problem. We can say these things, but and of course, very clearly. And the chapter before the vacuum is very interesting to read as well, because I mean they are very plain about this and how they. I mean, we have to have problems. We have to have an enemy. Countries have always enemies. We have to have scapegoats. We have to have something to say that we have to attack them. They are evil. We have to protect ourselves. So it's they are very plain with it.
So that is problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah. I mean, it's old Hegelian tactic. So, that's how power works.
So what happened at the conference in Rio in 1992?
They decided this. It was the Agenda 21, the conference document.
An agenda for the 21st century, which we are now in.
Yeah. to achieve something. And at that time, kind of no one understood this. We had this, I think we had this Agenda 21 office in Norrköping, where I live, and it was kind of this environmental guy looking like a hippie or something standing there, and nobody thought this was some more sinister thing. It was a good thing. We're going to save the planet. So,
and they're also part of course, that it's the whole idea of sustainable development and also smart cities, right?
Yeah, and that comes. I mean, nobody talked about smart cities in 1992. This comes after the more or less the Paris meeting, the big agreement in Paris in 2015. I mean, this is an agenda that has been continued, and it had taken time. We had a meeting in Rio, we had a meeting in Johannesburg, and we had a new meeting in Rio in 2012.
And that was the COP15 meeting in Copenhagen, the climate summit in 2009.
Yeah, that was an interesting meeting because they tried to achieve. They wanted to have that agreement at that time, but it was too early, and the insiders knew that. But it was a big spectacle at the time, and it was interesting in Copenhagen. I remember it was like a blizzard. Al Gore tried to. It was the Al Gore effect. It was so much snow and very much problems. You were in Copenhagen at that time, I assume, or?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So the smart cities, they're of course connected to the smart technology which we have today, which is also connected to 5G and everything else. And we can also get back to that. But of course, this is a UN Agenda 21 plan, right? And they now call it UN Agenda 2030. Why do they call it UN Agenda 2030?
It's more or less the same agenda, but 2030 is more or less that now we have to do it very fast. The Agenda 21 is for the whole century, but the Agenda 2030 is to achieve these goals to 2030. And when we'll have an agenda for 2050 as well. So these are stepping stones to get to what they want.
And what is it that they want specifically?
Total control. Control over the global commons. That has always been the goal.
But don't they have that already? There's so much surveillance and we have this smart technology and everybody can see what everyone is doing if they want to, at least people behind the scenes.
They want to get it even better. I mean, things have happened very fast. I mean, a couple of years ago, we didn't know what a smart city was. I mean, in 2015, if you ask someone what is a smart city, I don't know.
And maybe some of the audience, they don't know what a smart city is. So please just tell people briefly, what is a smart city?
Smart city is a city where everything is surveilled and controlled. You have this and you have this Internet of Things. You have 5G. You have sensors everywhere, and they claim this will do a better city. We will avoid congestion. We will. It will be easy. You don't need to have your own car. It will be self-driving and on and on.
They also have greenhouses on the rooftop of some of those smart cities, so they can grow their own food, vegetables.
Yeah. This agenda talks about people living in the cities. Few people will live in the country. It's the city. And that's why they always grow things. But the thing is, when we talk about things, these things, it's like creating artificial food and stuff. Everything in this new world order is more or less artificial. It's nothing but it's natural. And that's, if you go back to them claiming to want to save the earth, the environment and everything, but what's been created is it's not the reality anymore. And this smart city and this development with this technology, it will eventually create kind of a matrix where we blur the real world with the virtual world.
But isn't it a good thing to grow your own food in a greenhouse?
Yeah, of course. I have no problem with growing things. That's okay.
So what about veganism, which is also talked about a lot, heavily promoted also at the moment?
The big actors in this, they are into the big corporations of the world. If they can get people to pay for new forms of food, that's an investment. They do investments. They earn money on the solutions. So it actually was a conference in the 70s called the Crisis and Opportunity. And they said that it was arranged by the World Future Society. It's a very important, I write about it in the book. I can't talk about everything today, but the World Future Society had this conference. Nelson Rockefeller was the opening speaker. Because in crisis, there are always opportunities. In Chinese, it's the same word actually, crisis and opportunity. So in order to solve a crisis, you can come up with business solutions, and that's what they know. Rockefellers did it in the 50s, 60s. But they said, it's too much people, too much population, what can we do? Okay, one thing was pharmaceuticals. We had this, this medication, vaccination, that gave money to that industry, pharmaceuticals, big pharma. And they were behind the Green Revolution.
But a lot of people would think that veganism is a very healthy diet. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not against people to choose these ways to live, of course. But it also this, with a vegan it's not easy to get the proteins and whatever you need for your body to function. So they create food that is, I wouldn't say it is healthy.
Are you also referring to GMO and Monsanto and all of that genetically modified food?
That's one of the solutions, of course. And as we have seen this agenda unfolding, we see more and more of the technological solutions. We see more and more of the, GMO, all these things that the environmentalists, the activists that has been into the environment for real, that's not their thing. That's not their agenda. So it's been taken a whole other direction than they thought. So a lot of people have been used to this.
What are your thoughts on Extinction Rebellion?
I think it's disgusting. Actually, that says it all. Extinction Rebellion, the human, and the thing in this agenda is that it's like the human is evil, human is bad. We have to wipe out the human, and the symbolism and everything. The Extinction Rebellion, it makes me sick, actually. And they are part of this. And what this late climate movement do to young people? They make them don't want to live anymore. Don't want to raise children, anything. And they just blame themselves. It's such a sinister agenda.
So it's like fear-mongering, you mean?
Yeah, and you hurt people. And the thing is, I think we have to change this and actually talk about the human and how fantastic humanity is and how fantastic we are and what we actually can do. Because I mean, we are here for a reason, and we have a mission in life. And this, but what we tell our children is you have no future. You're not important, and we're taking away this. I mean, the spiritual dimension. All these are gone. You are mean nothing. You can just die.
There is actually a division of the Club of Rome called the Club of Budapest. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I write about it, because that's another thing of it. Because they knew early on that in order to achieve our new order, we have to influence all people. We have the environmentalists. That's one group. The hippies. We give them what they want to hear. And they have also influenced the New Age movement, the new spirituality. And it began early. And when you see the connections, you say Club of Budapest. The leader of Club of Budapest is Irving Laszlo. Irving Laszlo was he held a speech at this conference that said crisis and opportunity in 1975. And he was also a part of a project called the New International Economic Order Project at the United Nations. And that is technocracy. But then, and he was a part of the World Future Society. And in the World Future Society, they envisioned this utopia that they wanted to create. That's the utopia. I call it. I mean, it's a false utopia. It's just an instrument for control everything. But they said we going to create the perfect society for everyone. And Laszlo was one of them, and he discussed also spiritual matters and had a conversation with the leader of Club of Rome, Aurelio Peccei. We need this spirituality, and that is because mainly women will accept this. Environmentalism and the new spirituality is a way to get more women. The technophiles, a lot of males love this new technology, so they will get them, but they hide this. I call it techno-spirituality, because that is what it is. So Irving Laszlo and another important player at that time called Barbara Marx Hubbard, she was also at this meeting in 1975. And they discussed how shall we further this agenda. And they got a funding, a lot of government funding from the states as well, for setting up organizations in the New Age movement. And the Rockefellers, of course, was funding this as well, to get people into it. But behind this spiritual talk, we find a whole another agenda.
But in the field of conspiracy research or truth movement, a lot of researchers and people who've actually been part of it are talking about these elite people being involved in Satanism and practicing occult magic and rituals.
Yeah, I would say that it is an occult dimension in this. I don't write that much about it in my book, but I have a lot of information about it, and I will, my next project, look more into that connections, but because we find connections to theosophy and Freemasonry and Hermetism, Gnostic thinking, Kabbalah, every such movement. And if you go very far away to the idea of the perfect society, you go back to a lot of Kabbalistic thinking and to create something, and also this create a new human.
Why do you think that these top elitists, it would be, why do you think they practice Satanism, which is dark and sinister?
It's power. I mean, it's how you get power. Black magic, it's power. How can we achieve this?
Manipulation of energy?
Manipulation of energy, manipulation of people. They are very skilled. So I mean, it's the black arts, of course.
So how about religion and religious societies?
A lot of these people, they claim to be practicing Christianity and stuff, but behind that's a facade, I would say, for a lot of people.
The Catholic Church in Rome?
I mean, it's more or less like a Babylonian cult that is in Christian clothing. I would say it's not Jesus' church anymore, and that has never been. So.
Well, another thing that plays a major part, according to a lot of researchers, is mind control. Of course, an indoctrination through the media. But there were some official reports about MK Ultra mind control experiments happening by Nazi scientists and the US government after the Second World War, and through Project Operation Paperclip. Would you say that all of this indoctrination in the media is part of a mind control agenda, a collective mind control agenda?
I mean, we are mind controlled. A lot of people are mind controlled. Some people we don't can't take it. It doesn't function for us. But for the most part, yes, it's mind control. I mean, people have been mind controlled for a very, very long time. I mean, it's we have, but the techniques gets more sophisticated and more technological. But we have always had this. The elite has since in Greece they wanted to influence people to think in certain ways to have control. So I mean, mind control has always been there, but now we have other means to do it that gets more creepy because it's get inside our skins. Or inside our brains, if we come to Elon Musk's projects with Neuralink and everything. But it's a part of his very nutty agenda.
But would you say that most of the mainstream media or journalists or politicians, that they are aware of this so-called sinister agenda behind the scenes that you are talking about? Or are they actually good-hearted people wanting to do good?
Yeah, they are. They believe in this. There are very few people that actually understand what they are doing. I would say that Henry Kissinger understands what he's doing. but it's that level. The most people, we just want to do good. I mean, people are good-hearted the most, and we want to have love. We want to have a loving society, and these black magic manipulators, they know how to get us fighting all the time and start hating each other, and that's something we have to. I mean, we that see these things have a responsibility to reveal how they make up this game, how they manipulate, and that's one reason that I wrote the book, because I wanted to show how we do this and how they actually talk about it, because this is very well documented. They say it all the time, and I've heard another thing, that they actually have to say that we do it, because that's, if you agree to be manipulated, then I'm not evil. It's you that's stupid. so they think they get away from bad karma that way.
They have to do something good after having done something bad, yin, yang, or black, white.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, and this, if you talk about the Rockefellers, that was a philosophy. They were businessmen 6 days a week, and then they gave for goodwill the seventh day. And then they were even or something. But they always thought that, if I give something, maybe it's better if it gets me a good investment, but I get something from it. Because that's the thing. They want to get things for themselves all the time. It's not just to give for the sake of giving.
So talk about a very important topic, which is the hottest topic at the moment, at least in the truth movement, the implementation and fast rollout of 5G. And we just had the international Stop 5G Day, where demonstrations were taking place all over the world. What are your thoughts on 5G? What is the danger of electromagnetic radiation and frequencies?
That's a thing also from the elites, to get people to just talk about one aspect of the dangers. What I see as the big danger, it's the digital prison that they are building for us. That's the thing. What we're going to use 5G for, because in this discussion, there's a lot of women that are very concerned about the 5G and the radiation, and it's just a health issue. It's not just a health issue. There are reports about this can be very dangerous for people. So, and I know researcher Ole Johansson that has done a lot of research stuff about this, and warned about it. But I would say that it's the whole thing of creating this world brain with satellites everywhere, watching us constantly, and also be able to spot us everywhere on Earth and kill us if we want to on the spot. That's what I'm fighting against, and what we must stop. So
these 5G frequencies can be used for surveillance. They can be used to control people. How do they do that?
5G for me is more like, it's the infrastructure that you need for the Internet of Things, or to send information, because it's all about data gathering. Gather all the data about everyone constantly, all the time. Have an artificial intelligence to analyze this, and to find out who is good, who is bad, who can we trust, and everything. Because that's what it is. It's a big social credit system what they are building. That's not about equality. It's about total control, and to sort out the ones that can be trustworthy, and make people obey the ones at the top.
So it could be used for mind control as well.
Yeah, we have this technologies exist there, and this is old things as well.
Some people have called 5G and these frequencies for a silent weapon for quiet wars.
Yeah. That's the title of an old report. That's very famous. So and this, it will be mind control, because what they say is also they will blur reality with fiction. So we won't be able to know the difference anymore.
Because if people become too individual and think for themselves and start to wake up to what is possibly going on behind the scenes in this world, then they can't control people anymore. That's the goal, or what?
That's one of the reasons that they want to roll out this so quickly now to 2030, where you want to achieve something, and then they have The UN has decided the decade of action. We must do it now. No compromise. We can't wait for it. And this talk about the climate emergency. Because they know that people are starting to talk to each other. I mean, they have created this internet. And the internet for them was, okay, we have to give people something. We give them the ability to communicate, to connect to other people all over the globe. How do we do it? We have to make it like attractive. But for them, it was, we want the information. We want to be able to spot everyone. And now the coming years, they wanted to take away that part that we can share freely. But what it has done is that in these years that we have been able to talk to each other, in the early 90s, in the 80s, we were as fringe groups that we had these photocopies that we sent through post. It was very hard to get people together. But now we have started to talk to each other. And
people are waking up more because of the internet.
Yeah, so their creation that was meant for control has made us connect to each other and be able to do something. And that's what we are about to do now.
So do you think we can stop the rollout of 5G? At the moment, several researchers into the whole 5G problem are saying that possibly people behind the climate change agenda and maybe Extinction Rebellion is trying to hijack the 5G movement. What are your thoughts on that idea?
Well, of course, they will always try to get, if it's a threat, what can they do? They can try to stop a movement and try to not let them get out, or they can take it over. It has happened before, and lead it in another direction. So I assume that that could be the thing. So you always have to be awake and watchful against this. But if you know the game and how they work, it gets much easier.
Mm-hmm. So what is the hot topic for you at the moment here in January 2020? Do you have anything specific you would like to share with the audience now that we've heard a little bit about the background? And I know that there is a lot more about the whole thing and how everything and everyone is connected to this so-called climate change agenda. But please tell us if you have something important to share.
I have done a lot of background work to understand this. And now I'm at the time that I, like the United Nations said, decade of action. We have to do something now. And that's what I'm thinking now. Now is the time. We have to do this. We have to try to stop this, because if we don't do it, we will be in this digital prison. And these things are very on the agenda. We had this World Economic Forum just a few days ago, and they want to roll it out. they are pushing for it. It's going to get so fast, but we don't have any time to say no. So that's why we can't sit and just talk anymore. We have to connect, and I think this is a thing now. I'm talking to you here, and I'm going to Finland in some weeks, and I'm going to Holland and Belgium, and getting the book out all over the world.
What is the title of the book, and what is the main focus of your book?
The book is called The Rockefeller Controlling the Game, and it's the history of how the Rockefeller family started with the oil business and everything, and it explains how we got into this big plan to change the world for what they say the better, and I. In the last 2 chapters, explain this plan and what they have planned for us. And I would say that's what I can give to people to understand it. I've studied this for like 15 years. So it's a lot of work behind it, but it can give people more. Everybody doesn't have to dig into everything, but now I have managed to do something that I think can be a great help to many people.
So what is your most important message for people listening to this and maybe becoming a little bit fearful or skeptical or angry or whatever emotion they go through from hearing something this eye-opening? What is your best message for people?
Have hope, believe. We're gonna win. That's what I say. Because if we don't believe in ourselves, we lose. And they know it. Because that's what they always do to us, trying to make us not believe in anything. We mean nothing. We just animals. We're not humans. We are a plague for the planet and everything. That's a lie. We're going to change this world for the better, and we're going to do it our way. And that's not through mind control technology or this artificial boiled brain. No way.
If people want to read much more about you, check your facts, read your books or purchase your books, or even have you to come to their country or city for a lecture, how can they contact you?
I have a web page, and I actually have a foundation myself. The big guys have always foundations, so I founded my own. It's called the Pharos Foundation. Stiftelsen Pharos in Swedish. Named, of course, after the lighthouse in Alexandria. It's named that because we want to show the world the truth. The lighthouse lights at the library in Alexandria, the true knowledge. And at our webpage, we have information. We have information in English on how to order the books and everything. So I have an own personal homepage as well. But it's only in Swedish now. But, can be translated, of course. But every information is there. So everyone is welcome to contact me and order my books, of course, and hopefully wanted me to give a speech or something.
Just here in our remaining moment, on a lighter note, what is the significance of the octopus and the dragon behind you on the wall?
I'm glad you asked. I also am a musician, I can say. So I have a band. I have made soundtracks for my books.
Yes, you are also doing music for a long time, right?
Yeah, I'm very into music. Music is the language of God. I know you agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah. So the octopus is the Rockefeller influence over the world and all the areas that they are involved in. So that's one thing.
So you're also spreading awareness through your music.
Yeah, exactly. And the next book that I'm writing will be more about the occult agenda. It will be called the Temple of Solomon. because that's what I found out. We want to create an artificial Temple of Solomon of satellites.
And the significance of the dragon.
The dragon, yeah, the dragon. The thing is, in my apartment, I have two areas. This is about, how it functions. I have the dragon area, and I have on the other wall Jesus Christ and the Madonna. So that's the energies, the dragon energies and the God energies.
Good and bad, is that what you mean?
And that's what we are living in, the dualism between good and bad. And we have to balance that. So that's why I have these areas, because that's a part of our life, and we have to defend us from the dragon taking over us.
It's been very thought-provoking, mind-blowing, and fascinating to hear you talk about the connection between not only the Rockefellers, but the whole New World Order agenda with climate change. And thank you very much, Jacob Nordangård, for being on Age of Truth TV. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Lucas. It was. I'm very happy that I could join in and talk to you. It was pleasant. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to practice my English, because now I'm going to talk abroad. So
yes.
Yeah. So it's very easy.
It's brilliant. Thank you so much. We appreciate this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Oh.
Thank you very much to Jacob Nordangård, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. Your support is greatly appreciated. On behalf of the Age of Truth TV team, we thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.